Hello everyone, this is Jordan Arel. Hopefully this is all going. Looks like it's going. And thank you for joining us for today's episode of Intact Radio. And again, I'd like to start today with Intact News. So Intact News is basically I tell you whatever's going on in the world of Intactivism, in the world of ending and healing the wounds of non-consensual genital cutting. As I'm doing this, feel free to join in the discussion. There is a link. And hold on, I'm texting my friend also about this link. The link should be in the description of this. In the description, yeah, it should be the first link in the description. And if not, I'm also going to type it in the chat as soon as the chat comes up. But for some reason, it's not coming up. Chat, where are you, chat? There's no chat. Okay, there's no chat today. That's okay. So thanks for those of you just tuning in. Feel free to just join discussion anytime. The link should be in the description. And I'm going to start off today with saying happy Transgender Awareness Day for all of our transgender victims of genital mutilation. Last time we had Mahler Cougar on, who was an M2F woman who was a victim of transgender mutilation, I suppose you would call it. Assigned male at birth, had her foreskin amputated, and yeah, not a lot of people realize that transgender people also suffer from genital mutilation. I'm sure it goes the other way too. I haven't actually met an F2M victim of, who was assigned female at birth and had his clitoris cut off. So I'd be very curious if there are any M2F victims of genital mutilation who would like to come on at some point. I'd love to, give a voice to that perspective too. And yeah, that's. I don't have a lot of news today, actually. I suppose I could say I started a new group called Foreskin Community Action Groups, and just started that this week. Very excited for it. Basically, we're going to invite members from the Foreskin community, which is a organization whose goal is to regenerate the foreskin for victims of male genital mutilation, and yeah, basically find ways of kind of growing that Foreskin community and letting more people know that it is possible to regenerate the foreskin. A lot of people don't realize that that's a thing, and if we had, there may be a problem with the live stream right now because Carter said he's trying to join and it says waiting for host. I don't see anyone in the room, which means this is probably not working because I also don't, the chat is just like loading still, which is not right. So for anyone watching, my apologies. I'm going to close this and then I will be right back. And hopefully that won't, hopefully that'll fix things. I'm just going to end this and restart it. So I will be right back and see you all in another minute. All right, great. It looks like we have a couple people now who have joined the waiting room, Carter and Morgan Freeman. So I will let both of you in to the room. And hello, everybody.
Hey, what's up? Morgan Freeman.
Hi.
Yeah, pretty special.
That's not an alias, is it?
No, I'm Morgan Freeman.
That's a cool name, dude.
Very cool. I did not know I was going to be talking with Morgan Freeman today.
Yeah.
Great. Well, welcome both of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just was talking about today's Transgender Awareness Day, so shout out to all of our transgender victims of genital mutilation out there, and bringing some awareness to that, as well as the Foreskin community action groups, which are raising awareness about Foreskin, and just started this week. Another one is happening this Friday. If anyone wants to join, I would welcome you. Just let me know. And yeah. That's about all the news I have. Anyone else have any Intactivist news that we should be alerting people to?
Not really. Actually, today I just came to listen in, but I'll probably end up saying something eventually.
Cool. Morgan?
Yeah, nah, not really, not much.
Cool. Well, I'll just give one more plug here. If anyone ever has any Intactivist news, I welcome you to share it with me, because I want to be the sort of Intactivist news hub, actually, where if there's like anything going on, any projects that anyone needs help with, any exciting things happening, I want to share it here with the Intactivist community so that people can be aware of that. And it looks like we have another person joining you. Wesley. Hello, Wesley.
Hello.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Cool. I'm curious, where is everyone joining from? Where did you find this?
I found it on Reddit, and I'm from Florida.
Okay. Cool. Which Reddit? There's several that it's on.
r/Intactivists.
Okay. That's the biggest one, I think. How about you, Morgan?
Who? Oh, me. Oh, just from YouTube.
Okay. Cool. Intact Community or Jordan Arel? I have a lot of
Both.
Oh, okay. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining. So.
Hey, what about me? Just kidding. I'm from Arizona. Yeah.
Cool. You found this through
well, you just told me directly, but
okay.
Yeah.
Did not know that. Thank you for letting me know. Well, glad you're all here. So yeah, I think then trying to think what would be a good conversation topic to launch here. We have so many people. This is unusual.
Restoration.
It's a good topic. I was thinking, I had several ideas of topics to do. I was thinking about doing like a restoration / regeneration one, because I don't talk about that often enough.
Oh yeah, like restoration versus regeneration.
No, never.
We're talking about regeneration, like in the sense of Foreskin, or in the sense of like surgical.
Foreskin, yeah.
Yeah, because the surgical is not very good, from what I hear.
No, it's generally pretty not good results. Yeah, restoration and regeneration, to answer your question, not restoration or regeneration.
What is the current surgical procedure even like? I've never actually
graft your testicular skin onto your
really?
Yeah. So that
seems very strange to me, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not even like I guess they move the scrotal skin up on your shaft and then push the rest of the skin. It doesn't sound very good. Yeah, restoration takes a lot of time and consistency, but that's the best means at this point to getting some of the functions back.
Right. I agree.
Yep, I've been restoring for 7 years. It takes a long time. For some longer than others. For me, it's going to take a lot longer than most people, I think, just because slow.
I've done it on and off for like about 5 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's everyone's circumference index?
Circumference index?
Is that new?
I think it's coverage index, but there is also a circumference index, but it's like the circumference, I guess, of your penis, which I guess
I thought it was circumference.
No, it's coverage.
Index. Yeah,
there's like CI, RCI, and FEC.
All right,
gotcha.
I use RCI So,
yeah, what's the difference actually between RCI and CI? I haven't deciphered that yet.
CI uses images of like both the flaccid and erect states, and it's like you're supposed to get your average, but it's kind of difficult to do because depending on temperature, posture, all kinds of stuff, the flaccid penis actually changes size throughout the day, which means that sometimes you'll have more skin and sometimes you'll have less coverage. So RCI it's essentially a similar thing. It's like a 1 to 10 or a 0 to 10 scale, but it uses descriptions of states. Like for instance, I've been in RCI 4 for a long, long time, which is the rollover stage. And that's where sometimes it rolls over the hump and sometimes it doesn't. And that's by far the longest stage in restoration because it just takes a long time to actually consistently get it to where it's rolled over.
Yeah, same here. I've been between, I'm like between 3 and 4, I think. It rarely rolls over, but if it's just the right weather, whatever. Or if I hold it there for long enough, it'll stay for a little bit.
You know, I haven't come across like the RCI index before, any type of resources online. Is there something that...
Is there like a chat here? I don't know if I can send... Oh, there's a private chat. Yeah. Yeah, I've got the link.
Cool.
It's similar. You can... It's not exactly the same as the CI. Most people use CI, but...
So is there not images to kind of accompany the text descriptions, or?
No, I mean, everybody's, the descriptions are pretty accurate though. I think the descriptions for me are like better than the images, because it describes the state of like oscillation. Yeah. So
I think they actually work well together. I mean, just to get a visual understanding maybe of what the CIs are. Because it's sometimes kind of difficult to build that abstract picture without an actual picture. But I'm going to read through these text descriptions. I think I've been on this site, but it was a long, long time ago. Because I at the very least want to understand the difference between RCI and CI. I just, you know, because you kind of mentioned
well, it actually talks
CI
about
is really a better indicator at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was made in response to it. Then also FEC can be used, which is like force direct coverage. And that's where like you actually measure how far you can pull the skin when you have an erection, which is a bit difficult to do, but it's basically like a percentage of your glands. Like if you can get halfway up the glands while you're erect, that's 50% FEC. If you can't get to the corona, it's like, you know, a negative FEC, or if you can get past, it can be like 150, 200.
I was looking at a Foreskin Reddit today, and I saw one guy who was like showing how long his foreskin is, and he's like, this is longer than my actual penis, and he was stretching out his foreskin, and it was like way longer than his actual penis. Like the distance between the head of his penis and the end of his foreskin was like this much.
That's crazy. Like,
yeah.
Well, some people restore. Some people go beyond like flaccid coverage. That's all I really want. But some people go for like erect coverage, which means that, or even people who are like born intact, some of them restore if they have short foreskins, or if they want like a really long foreskin. And then when you have erect coverage, it's like when you're flaccid, then it goes way, way longer than your glands. Like
it overhangs. Yeah.
Yeah. But even on like the average, I think it's like 3 by 5 inches. So like, I mean, what is the average erect penis? Like 5 to 6? That's like half of the mobile skin tube of the penis that you're losing. So, you know, you're going to lose a lot of lubrication with circumcision.
Yeah, really you lose like a lot of the, you know, kind of all the real mobility of it going over the glands and things like that. For most individuals, before they start restoring.
And that's like one of the best things that I've gotten when restoring is it's like, oh, wow, you know, it doesn't stop before it gets to the glands. It actually goes over it. And it's like a whole new sensation, like while you're doing your thing, you know, that's just like unavailable.
That's a component of this that really disturbs me right now. I'm restoring myself, but I'm not at a point where you know, the restored skin can move over the glands, and that really bothers me during any type of sexual intercourse or masturbation. And things like that. And also just not having the glands fully covered. That's tough right now, because I'm restoring so much that when it's just uncovered, when I have to leave it uncovered, it's incredibly uncomfortable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Are you retaining?
Not really. I'm just doing manual restoration. Yeah, I really should start retaining though. I just got to the point where I'm like, can use a device at this point. So I had to do a good amount of manual restoring just to be able to use a device here. And I'm getting to the point of figuring out how to like retain full time and then really use a device full time as well.
Do you have a device picked out?
Yeah, the DTR. That's what I've decided on with the air. I'd be interested in exploring.
With the air, nice.
Yeah.
So I have the TLC.
Right. That was really my second option.
Yeah, the DTR and the TLC, and also like the CAT. A lot of people like.
Right.
This one has spacers. Like I have a 24 and a 12. Like when I first started off, I don't think there's any way I could feasibly use it with this amount. It was just like, you know, all this portion was gone when I first started. But now it's like, you know, it kind of gives you a bit of an indication of how much I've grown. Is like, in order to keep it taut, because I don't really wear a strap anymore. I use these spacers to like pull it more initially so that it's more taut like throughout the day.
I have a quick question. How long have you been restoring for?
About 5
years. Okay.
Yeah, 5 years.
Right. And you've made, so you started at maybe a CI1 or?
You know, I don't think that I was. Well, I don't know about CI. The RCI, it's like 1, 2, 3 are like short, medium, long, or tight, medium, loose.
Right.
So like, I think I started at a 2.
Okay.
Because I mean, I had some mobility when flaccid.
Right.
It wasn't that bad for me. Fortunately, I was able to use a device right out of the gate. Although I do use manual sometimes to supplement it. I don't think I was 3, because the way it describes it, I think in the RCI is like
I'm reading it right now.
Bunches at the coronal ridge, and may at times roll over a bit if the individual is cold or suffering. So I don't think that ever really happened.
Yeah, I guess on the RCI index, I would have started maybe between an RCI 1 and 2 myself. Now that I'm reading the descriptions, yeah, definitely
not. Was a 2.
I might be really between a 2 and a 3 now, though.
Yeah, I think I started at a 2, and then I don't know. Everybody's different. For me,
manual was tough to figure out and stay consistent with. I really struggled with that in the beginning, but I had really no other solution beyond T-taping and things like that, the canister method, which I tried, but then I just kind of got a good routine with the manual restoration. And it takes a long time. Like, to get to this point, it's been like 4 or 5 months of consistent manual tugging every hour, 5 to 10 minutes every hour. So I've definitely put in some time here. And I just am shocked at how long it actually takes, though. At times, I honestly think it's going to be a decade for me before I get to the point that I really want to be at.
Yeah, the same for me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I started with a 2, and I don't know. I feel like I got, in a couple years, I feel like I got to the 4 or maybe a late 3, because it started rolling over not that long. So maybe I was like a loose 2. I'm not really sure, but it was like, it's been like about at least 3 years now that I've been in that hump stage, and it's very irritating, because at a certain point you just hit this wall, and it's much harder to gauge your progress because it's not like linear anymore. You've just got to basically look at how it's oscillating, and then I've noticed like more and more, like now when I'm sitting down, much guarantee that I have rollover, a pretty good amount usually. When I'm standing up, it's kind of iffy. When I'm laying down, I usually don't have it. But you just got to kind of pay attention, like, over time to your body, and like you do see progress, but it's harder because it's not as intuitive, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a huge barrier for people right now. Is I stopped like multiple times before I really stuck with it. A lot of times, actually, because I was like, you know, I go for a week or something and you see nothing. There's no difference.
Yeah.
And, you know, even after a month when I was trying, I still saw it. It was really after 2 months where I was like, okay, there's something noticeably different here. And I think initially, you know, people get into it and stop a ton because they're not seeing progress after 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks sometimes. And, you know, that has to be communicated maybe that, you know, more effectively. And I think it is. I think it is. But once you actually do it and don't see anything, it's difficult to stick with it.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of people, it's like a millimeter a month.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's like, it might not even be on a month basis. It might be a few months.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
I feel like it's like a year or two between when I notice progress at this point.
Really, like any progress at all?
It's so slow, dude. It's crazy. My skin is like really
I've
slow.
been seeing something.
Yeah.
It really, I can feel the difference though. Like there's just more mobility. But there's also little tiny wrinkles if you really zoom in on it. Hey, how's it going, man?
Good. Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay. Good, because it doesn't have a microphone, so I wasn't sure. Hello, everyone. I was listening to the conversation. So I was waiting for a pause, basically.
Well, welcome. Yeah.
Have you guys ever been to a Bloodstained Men protest?
I haven't.
I've seen a ton though. Well, I've watched a lot on Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, I was in the photo of them on the beach. If you guys have seen it,
yeah,
I'm next to Brother K.
I've seen that one. It's kind of an iconic one.
Yeah, that's what I said recently. They shared it. I'm like, this is going to be in the history books, man.
Cool photo.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm jelly. I'm in some with John Adkison. He has some bloodstained suits, and we took a bunch of pictures around LA and like in front of like pediatricians' offices, hospitals and stuff, and post them on Google Maps so people will see those.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
I was just watching a video of Brother K, and I don't know who else it was, but they walked into a pediatrician's office.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I was like, damn, man. He just barged right in there. I loved the approach. I loved it, but he just walked right in. No shame at all. It was badass. It really was. I was like, excellent. Great for those guys. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're doing it.
Well, and the thing is, like, you know, has there ever been a more iconic protest symbol than the bloodstained suit? Like, that's so identifiable and so bad.
For sure.
I think a lot of people don't see it that way, but I think that in the future it's going to be viewed a lot differently.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who look at it as a threat or a comical joke or things like that. But I do think the understanding and the perspective will evolve over time.
Yeah. Well, it's something that definitely gets attention, even if it's just for like comical stuff. Like, it gets people to think about it.
Right. Yeah. But I really think we need to like command a lot of authority on this.
Yeah.
So
I think it's interesting, like with the billboards, for instance.
I like those. I
if you think of like
those campaigns.
Yeah, you think of like any character. There's a theory like with animation, like the best characters are those that can be identified in shadow, like Mickey Mouse, Homer Simpson. With the bloodstained suit, it's almost the opposite though, because it's white, but it's like a white guy and with a red bloodstained crotch. And that's like all you need, and that's the symbol.
That's true.
Cool.
That was some interesting insight that you just shared right there about like the silhouettes and logos and things, or figures.
Yeah, anyone know what K stands for in Brother K?
Yeah, it's the first letter of his original name, which he's given up. He doesn't like to say it.
Oh, all right.
Well, he says it stands for kind now.
I like that. I like that. I'm looking forward to seeing them get back out there when the Rona dies down, the restrictions at least.
Yeah, I'm so ready for this to be over. I'm so ready for Corona to describe the ridge on the penis instead of virus. Because as soon as that thing came along, I'm like, you know, on like the restoration forums and stuff, I kind of avoided referring to it as the Corona. I referred to it more as the ridge.
I never
or the
thought
hump.
about that. That's weird that I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, it is interesting. I never thought of that either. That is the hump. That is the wall that you hit is your corona.
Well, it just means like crown.
From rolling over.
Right. It's just the crown is all it means. The coronavirus looks like it has a crown. So the corona of the sun, you know.
Yeah. Your eye, I guess, too.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a great structure for it has very good properties for massaging with the foreskin, I think.
It doesn't always feel that way when you're restoring, though.
How does it feel for you?
When it doesn't always feel like a great structure when you're spending years trying to get over it, but you know, it is actually a very good structure.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Who wants to see my device?
I can see it.
Yeah, you can already?
Sure.
Oh,
your device, right?
My device.
Your device?
Yeah. Basically, yeah. So, it's disassembled now, but this is I've kind of put it all together here.
Which one is it?
There's two, I don't know what they're called. Like, what are they called?
Yeah.
Nuts, bolts.
Yeah.
And you've got the two, like, I don't know what this is, but it's 3D printed.
Oh, okay.
And so you've got like one little, like basically see this structure. There's one big one on the out, and then there's sort of a smaller version inside. And you put the smaller one inside, and then the bigger one on the outside. And like your skin sort of goes between it, and it kind of all is put together with these two metal parts. And you can adjust the tension just like however you want, and you just like kind of adjust it, and you wear it around your neck, which I think is pretty cool, like as opposed to it being attached to your leg or something. So
you wear it around your neck. Is that what you said? You wear it around your neck?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting.
That is interesting.
So this thing, it goes in between the metal parts. So, and you can just wear it like a necklace like this.
Nice. Does that make it almost easier to apply tension that way?
I don't know. I actually don't really understand if like I could have it like explained if this thing, because this doesn't really pull on it. It's more the metal parts that you like you twist and to loosen it or to tighten it.
What device is that? Actually, I've never heard of that one.
I think it's a new one. It's called CUT, I think.
Interesting acronym. Makes sense.
Did you actually like print out the stuff with the 3D printer, or was it like 3D printed and then sent to you?
Well, I didn't do it, but it was 3D printed. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've heard of like over-the-shoulder strapping. See, I tried the strap for a while when I was starting out down the leg, but I didn't really like it because it's kind of asymmetrical, and it changes depending on whether you're sitting down or not. So I can see that actually being better. One thing though with the strapless is that it works by pushing off of your glands, right? So that can create a lot of pressure on your glands, and it can force you to like take it off before the skin itself actually gets to a point where it's where you need to take it off just because your glands is taking such a beating. So what I do, I got a couple sheets of toilet paper, fold it into a fourth, put that right there, put that between my glands, and it creates a little pillow. And then my glands does not take as much of a beating.
Good idea.
Nice, nice.
I wonder if I'll have that issue with the DTR. Maybe.
Are you doing strapless?
That's a good question. I haven't really looked into that too in depth. I might try both approaches just to understand which one works better for me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, it's just a matter of like, I guess, laziness or convenience.
Right.
But some people think like you have to wear a strap or weights or something. I think it definitely helps, but I've certainly seen progress without it. The thing is, you've just got to you get enough tension initially in the application and with like the rod, because that like the tension is coming. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, I keep trying to order the DTR, but you're not able to order it like for large stretches of time, and then they make it available for a day or something, and then it's sold out in like an hour. And if you haven't checked, there's no announcement or anything. It's just he makes it available, and then first come, first serve.
That's actually great to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I apparently there's a huge demand because, like, back in my day, I just ordered it and it came to me. So it was apparently there wasn't that many people who were asking.
Yeah, I've tried now for like 3 weeks.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jordan.
What'd I do?
Like raising awareness, calling
more people. You were insinuating. I was like, yeah, man, quit doing this stuff.
That's what I do, man. It's just my personality.
I did try TLC, TLCX, and DTR. And DTR, it was the one that worked for me. And because with TLC, actually, I used to use the strap. And in summer, I would have to wear a knee pad. And I had this knee pain in the eyes of my friends and my family that would just wouldn't go away. So it was kind of hard to explain why I kept wearing the knee pad and why I walked like that from time to time, because when it just, when it lost the skin, when the cone didn't hold the skin anymore, just the slightest, movement was very painful. Like, especially in public, it could create, at least for me, some uncomfortable situations, but it may not be the same case for everyone.
Yeah, I used like part of a tube sock that I cut. I didn't find the knee pad. I don't need a knee brace. That's what they recommend on the website, strangely, for the TLC. But yeah, I just used like part of a tube sock to stop it from digging in. But yeah, I understand what you're talking about, because like I didn't want to like have that showing. So like, and I'm in Florida, so like in the summer I would have to wear pants to cover it up, and that was kind of lame. So that's why I stopped using the strap.
And you've obviously still seen good results without a strap.
Yeah, I absolutely have. I think the spacers for the, and I believe you can get spacers for the DTR as well when you grow out, if you're doing it strapless, because that kind of allows you to adjust the ratio of inner to outer skin. So that can really help if you're doing strapless.
Right.
There are many people who are like 3D print, not many, but I know a couple of people who 3D print their devices. It's happening. I mean, I hope they don't hurt themselves, but it's happening. Because like, I mean, it's kind of pricey, and I'm talking about these are the people in Europe, so it's not as easy to get as the North America, dare I say, but at the same time, Carter is the one who doesn't have a DTR yet, so it wouldn't be fair. But at the same time, yeah, with the prices and shipping and everything, it's rather risky. There are people who cannot, I want to say Thailand, that they don't ship at all. So yeah, I mean, economically, it cannot be the same case for everyone. But yeah, they are rather pricey, I can say, in my opinion.
It's pretty cool. Like all of us are restorers, I guess. I didn't expect that because I thought that I kind of viewed restoration as like a niche within a niche. Like even with the activist community, sometimes I'm a little bit wary of bringing up restoration, like if it's TMI. But I mean, there's more of us out there than I thought.
Yeah, you know, there's a huge community on Reddit. Obviously, you're aware of that, and I think it has like 17,000 members. So I honestly think there's a lot of people that are really behind the scenes. They don't do any type of activism. They're not, you know, on social media really talking about this at all, but they're restoring. So I think there's actually a huge community of those individuals that aren't speaking out on this publicly. They're not even really involved in the activism. They're simply just restoring and going about their life.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's actually, it seems to me, a lot more people restoring than there are even interested in Foreskin too, which is or Foreskin regeneration, which would to me be like, has always been like the main thing that I'm interested in. It's like, well, if I can have it all back, then we should do that. And so
I'm in the same boat. I think restoration is excellent and something that I'm going to keep pursuing, and it's going to bring a lot of value to my life and comfort to my life. But I can already kind of understand that it's not the same. The properties of the tissue are not going to be identical, and that bothers me still. And the specialized structures like the ridged band and the frenulum, those obviously cannot be restored. Potentially, actually, I've heard that if you're like tugging on the frenulum and things like that, maybe you can generate some more of that tissue. But does it have the same properties? That's really what I want to have an affirmative answer on is, does tissue, the mucosal membrane tissue that undergoes mitosis, is that tissue have the same properties as the default state of the foreskin, the properties of the tissue if it wasn't removed?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever
I think some people say, oh, sorry. I think some people say that it's like at least 99% the same as what it would be. Because I've heard for a while I 75. Thought, oh yeah,
yeah. Those anecdotal stories are very important to me, but I actually want to know. You know, I really want to know this question: is the properties of the tissue the same, or how close is it? You can definitely analyze that, and at a granular level, look into that and understand if that's the case. It's actually probably quite trivial to do.
You would be interested in this resource, norm.org. This is a list of all the stuff that is lost, and every one of them has a label as to whether it's restorable or not restorable.
Right. Wow.
There's a lot that isn't.
This is a great resource.
I always put this link when people are like on Facebook or something like, oh, it doesn't take anything away. Really? Like, look at this.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I'm only basing this off of anecdotes as well, but the Meissner corpuscles, I've heard that those are,
Oh yeah,
you know, very specialized type of sensory touch receptor. And here in this resource, it's saying that those are lost. Obviously, I'm not just going to take this at face value, but I'm going to look into that a little more. And I can kind of understand that.
Yeah, the Meissner's corpuscles are in
the, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, well, yeah, no, I believe we still have some Meissner's corpuscles because they exist in the inner.
Oh,
skin.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
but you're not growing new. You're not growing. Yeah.
You've essentially, you know, a comparison that I might make is it's as if you take like a video that's an SD and you scale it up to be bigger, and then you maybe like upscale it or something. We're not getting more nerve endings. We have some of them left in the inner skin, but we're expanding that area out.
Yeah.
So the skin expands, but there aren't any more nerve endings in the skin, unfortunately.
What I think is really interesting is the remaining mucosal membrane tissue. When it is uncovered and exposed to the elements, it is degrading over time. And that's a huge benefit of restoring, is you preserve the remaining mucosal membrane tissue and you put it in the proper environment to allow it to be mucosal membrane tissue again. I mean, I wouldn't even call it, when it's so keratinized like that, when those keratin proteins have like created a thick layer of keratin on your penis, that's not mucosal membrane tissue anymore. I mean, I guess maybe you could call it that, but the properties of it really have changed.
Yeah. I don't think there's, see, I don't think you can put a percentage or a mathematical property on it, because how do you quantify the lubrication that you get back?
Right.
You know, how do you quantify? There's so many things that they're not.
And just the stretch is what's actually, I've only understood this since I've been restoring, but it's the stretch, it's the movement. Like it's the movement of the tissue that generates all the, when it's taut, when it's very tight and taut, there's very limited sensation, even with lubrication or something. It's just the movement where the real, like, deeper sensation, the meaningful sensation I'm getting, that creates that kind of euphoric neurological response.
Yeah, it's the difference between like the penis moving within its own and the sheath itself having to move with the penis and creating friction.
Right. Yeah. It's this is a radical operation, obviously, as we all know. Yeah, that loss is just profound.
Yeah,
at the very least, there's yeah.
And I mean, regeneration to me is very interesting as well. When I was first doing restoring, I was contemplating, well, do I wait for regeneration or do I start restoring? And the people on the forums basically convinced me, like, I love the idea of regeneration. I really do. The problem is it going to happen in our lifetimes? I don't want to be like, or even if it's when I'm like 60 years old, like, am I going to even be interested in sex at that point? Right. The thing is, like, you know, the stem cell regeneration and all that is fascinating. But like, we're probably going to be the last in line for it, even if it does take off, because they're going to want to, you know, probably restore, you know, paraplegic and quadriplegic people. They're going to want to restore people who have lost limbs, which makes total sense. I get that. But we're, even if it takes off, we're probably going to be like the last on the totem pole, because society just doesn't see us as a priority, really.
I think that, I mean, that could change with Intactivism, right? That's one of the main goals that I have, is to raise awareness so that, you know, people are aware of why it's important, as well as just within the Intactivist community too, right? If everyone who is restoring donated $1 a month, then we would easily meet our funding goals and have regenerated it actually years ago already. you know, we probably would have been able to do it by now, actually. So like, I think that's definitely good. It's good to restore while you're waiting, but I also always encourage people to, like, you know, if you're pessimistic about it, then yeah, you're right. If you're optimistic about it, you're also right, because it's really people saying that's not going to happen that means they don't follow it and don't want to,
Yeah.
you know, donate. It's like kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in that way.
I would like to see the federal government and state governments, you know, in the United States, I'm not really talking globally at this time, but invest in regenerative medicine and restorative therapies like devices. Obviously, this is very ambitious, but I think down the line, when this gets framed to the public as an atrocity, which is what it is, it's this very serious, high caliber criminal offense and atrocity. And if we're able to make that pitch effectively, and that's how it's, you know, received by the public, that's going to really change our opportunity to involve the federal government and involve state governments in a plan of action for, no pun intended, but restorative justice on this issue. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that necessarily, but I definitely think they are condoning something quite serious here. You know, it's there's a lot of institutions of power that they're facilitating it, they're condoning it, and it's just not justifiable.
Yeah,
obviously we know that. Yeah, so and the offense is just so great that I think it really does warrant a response from federal and state governments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think the insane thing again is just that it's actually, in the grand scheme, if you look at the federal or even state level, California actually just approved a $5.5 billion stem cell grant for the California Institute of Regenerative Medicine. And so that's actually 500 times as much as Foreskin just recently stated on their podcast, or on Brennan Rodda's podcast, that we would need, which is only 10 million.
And when
so
when
it's
you
like,
think, yeah, great point, Jordan. Excellent point. And I know I'm just chiming in again, but I really want to get this across. 32 states right now, or Medicaid funds infant circumcision in 32 states. Taxpayers are paying for children to be mutilated. It used to be all 50 states, I believe. You know, someone correct me if I'm wrong. If taxpayers can pay to mutilate children, why can't they pay for restorative justice for the men that are victims of an atrocity, where it's like an act of terror? This terrified us. It's a horrible thing that was done. So I think framing it as an atrocity is very appropriate. And down the line, we really need to get into depth on why we're so upset about this. We need to explain that it's this anatomical loss is why this is such a grievance for us, and really hit home on that. You can't be performing penile modifications on infants and then give no legal framework to pursue any justice and just say, fuck you, pretty much. That is so unacceptable to me. You're not a citizen at that point of a country. I don't feel that way. I really don't. I feel like it's a very dehumanizing act of extreme violence and terror. It's brought terror and fear and loss and hate and anger into my life, and it's an atrocity. So I feel very comfortable now kind of demanding that the government go through a truth and reconciliation process where they identify what happened, make an apology on it, really investigate this, and then come up with a plan of action to bring some justice into these victims' lives.
Yeah, I think that, I've dabbled in a lot of different activism, and I think that circumcision and activism is like one of the least divided, the issue itself to some people is divisive. Like the actual intactivist community is one of the least divided, in the sense that we appeal to so many different points of view. If you're, you know, coming from like the liberal side, you want to prevent harm. If you're coming from the conservative or the libertarian side, you want to do like individual freedom. There's argument. I've seen great pro-choice arguments, like her his choice. I've seen, you know, the pro-life being, you know, it's a you know, such a holy, you know, life form, but we're going to cut off part of the body. That doesn't make sense, you know. And I've seen like, I've seen it from like the feminist perspective. I've seen it from like the men's rights perspective, egalitarian perspective, and they all work within, like, you can appeal to like pretty much any person of any political persuasion. Like, you can appeal to them, you know. And even like, you know, with like the religious components, it's like, it's a freedom of religion to give that child the choice over like their religious choices over their body.
They don't receive that argument well at all. You actually lose all authority when you try to use that with them. They're like, they immediately just say, this person doesn't understand. And I was doing the same thing. I had to have that explained to me by someone. I'm not saying that's the case in all scenarios, but when you say something like that, they just think you don't get it. You don't get the situation at all.
Who's
so
they?
They're not, well, anyone who uses religious justification for this practice. So Christians, really the three Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are the only ones practicing this, I believe, for religious reasons. I'm probably wrong on that.
Well, it's interesting.
But when you try to present that, you know, this is not a, you know, you don't have to, for Christianity, it's actually a lot easier, and I think Islam as well. Judaism is really the only, I've only heard this from other Jews actually. And they say they never, when Jews are like interfacing with other Jews on this, they never really frame it as, you know, you're taking away this person's religious freedom, because they look at this as like a covenant with God. Right. And so
the covenant should be something that you should have the choice to do. If you don't want to do that, the covenant, or you don't see it that way, which is how a lot of Jews are viewing it now with Brit Shalom. Like, there's a lot of people within the Jewish community that are saying that's not even, like, they don't want those people speaking for them. And I think those people are very valuable, you know, because I'm not Jewish. So, but I'm not.
I can't really speak for them. I can't speak for Judaism entirely, but I have had this come up, and I have had it framed to me too, that it's not doing it as an adult, it's doing it as an infant. That's critical. It's a critical thing for them. It's doing it as an infant, and having it done as an adult is not the same. And I can't really explain fully why, but I don't think that argument's going to be particularly effective. I think there potentially are some effective arguments, but that one, you know, if you're using it with somebody who really believes this is a religious custom that they have, that's not even the right word. It's like a commandment. It's like God told you to do this, and if you don't do this, it's a serious thing. It's a very, very serious thing. I honestly think if I believe that, guys, if I believe that, I would do that to my child. I mean, if I believed that God was real and that he said explicitly to do this, I see myself doing that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get where you're coming from. The thing is, like, and I hear this, and I feel like those types of people who are like really, really deep into the religious aspect probably just aren't going to become intactivists anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know, but I feel like those people are probably too far gone. But there's a lot of moderate religious people too.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's religious people who, you know, don't try to push it on other people, and for them, I think that it depends on the person. With the one that really does view it like you're saying, I think you're probably right. But with the person who's like a moderate religious person, you know, the thing is, like, and I'm just saying this to like you guys. I don't know if I would. Maybe I probably would say it to them as well. But even though it's probably not the best argument, but like the thing is, like, I do recognize that religious people have these deeply held beliefs, and that's fine. I just wish that some people, in all respects, like would realize that those beliefs are their own, and simply having a strongly held belief does not give you the right to impose that belief on others. It doesn't mean that anyone else has to take that belief seriously simply because you strongly believe it.
Right.
So, you know, maybe that's a bad argument for them or not, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like, I think you do run into a similar problem comparing it to female circumcision. You have to be very, very careful about doing that.
I'm not careful at all. Yeah. I've upset a lot of people, and that's fine with me. You know, they're going to hear from me that it is very similar. And then, you know, we're going to get into an argument about that 10 times out of 10. So that's the approach that I take on that one. It's totally unacceptable to me that people think that this issue can't be compared, and they can be called out very easily on it. And I've spoken with a lot of people that are just, they have nothing left to say. They just have nothing left to say.
One thing I try to do when I do bring it up with, when I do compare it with female, is I immediately try to say, let's clear up the terms here. Okay, when I say female circumcision, I'm referring to the removal of the clitoral hood. Because sometimes female circumcision, they use that to refer to like cutting off the whole clitoris or more radical procedures.
Yeah, that always needs to be explained.
Yeah, I'm not like, I got to make it clear. I'm not saying cutting off the entire clitoris is the same as cutting off the prepuce. Yeah. But I do think cutting off the female prepuce is the same.
It's involuntary genital modification surgery. So that's like the main thing I think to look at here, and where you should start at. It's where can we make some similarities? I'm not saying it's identical. I'm saying there are similarities. Yeah. One is that it's an involuntary genital modification surgery on an infant. You know, number two, it's torturing. They're both torture. So you're torturing a girl, you're torturing a boy. The only difference is that this is a boy. I mean, there's obviously more, but really it comes down to the gender. Yeah. One's on female anatomy, the other is on male anatomy, but there's a lot of similarities to make there.
And like comparing the clitoral hood to the foreskin is like,
yeah, that's not a great, yeah. The foreskin is huge compared to the clitoral hood. It has a much more, well, I'm not going to get into this too much, but
well, I mean, obviously the clitoris is smaller than the penis, so
yeah.
But no, I mean they're analogous organs. All mammals have a prepuce. You can't circumcise a dog. You'd go to jail if you circumcised a dog. You know,
it does have a functional purpose for both, but this is like the entire. You know, it's like this very functional piece of it's a component of the anatomy. So is the clitoral hood, but this is this massive sheath of membrane tissue. It's really almost like the vagina too, in a way. It's so large that it's not really like a kind of, I mean, it's like a sleeve of mucosal tissue, very similar to the glans tissue. So the quantity is significantly more than on the clitoris.
Yeah, well, the clitoris is, I guess, smaller than the penis, but they're analogous organs is all I'm saying. One thing also that's interesting is like if you look at the different types of female genital mutilation, type 4 is considered to be pricking or nicking, anything not classified. So like a ritual, a prick as part of a religious ceremony, usually that is considered genital mutilation, and that is certainly far less invasive than circumcision.
Absolutely.
What are they pricking?
The clitoral hood, I think.
Or anything, I guess, yeah. Anything on the genitals would probably be type 4.
I had somebody tell me, like, on this online debate, that, like, no, the clitoral hood is not the same as the penis. You know, in girls, the clitoral hood is fused onto the glands. I'm like, so is the foreskin.
In infancy, yeah.
Yeah, in infancy.
Yeah, yeah, that's fucked up. The de-adhering process that takes place before a circumcision is performed on an infant. That is obviously the whole thing is fucked up, but because that really damages the glands too. Actually, it really damages the glands, and that's why if you've ever watched an infant circumcision, you can see that the glands are like completely, a whole layer of tissue has been taken off because it just got separated, like literally serrated from the foreskin. So another great thing to look forward to.
I do find a slight like racist hypocrisy in this argument too, about like comparing the female circumcision to male circumcision, because what is it?
Well, what you didn't say? Did you say racist?
Yes.
Racist. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
in the sense
people
like
think all those barbaric cultures over there.
Mm.
And you know, like when we have dogs and cats as pets, but it is completely disgusting and utterly unacceptable to have it on our plate, whereas it's a part of other people's cultures. So it's not similar to ours, thus it is primitive. So it's kind of the same thing. I mean, they're not like in African tribes, mostly, they're not circumcising their daughters to torture them, they think it's cleaner, they think it's good for them, they think it's good for to diminish their sexual drive. So it is exactly the same arguments that are used for male circumcision. But since it's not happening in Florida, it is unacceptable, but it is really acceptable for that culture. So I do not. I mean, it's the same in my country too. I mean, like female circumcision is not practiced, thank God, and still people's approach is really like, yikes, that's barbaric, whereas it's their own culture. So I'm not defending female circumcision, obviously. FGM.
Does anyone think that there is also a bit of a sexist component to it? Because, like, I think when it comes to like, you know, I don't want to risk bringing up, you know, a controversial topic, but like, you know, when I think of like, I had to sign up for like the selective service, you know, probably we won't have a draft, but if I was born or if I was a teenager or an adult in the 70s, I might have had to go to war and die because I'm a dude. So it seems like we've kind of been conditioned to view men, probably because historically we've been essentially used by whatever empire that we happen to be born into at the time as cannon fodder. We've been conditioned to view men's lives and perhaps by extension boys' lives as more disposable than girls and women, whereas girls and women are like more important in a sense, you know, even though there's women's issues, and I think those are important too. Like, I think in terms of like the reproductive capacity of women and girls, they've usually been viewed as like more important to the survival of the species, whereas men are viewed more as like cannon fodder.
It's definitely a political issue, and I just want to bring up quick that, you know, we're equally against all genital mutilation of children, whether that's male, female, intersex, transgender, whatever. Equally against all of them are equally horrible. But at the same time, I also can't deny what you're saying, which is, you know, male genital mutilation is by far the largest. You know, men are considered disposable, and it's basically standard practice to harm and physically attack males to make them stronger because they're disposable and because they're socially acceptable. But to have violence against men is just completely normalized in like most societies.
This is an example of sexism too. It's like, where did this come from? Especially in a country that has criminalized, I believe, not at the federal level, but many states have criminalized FGM. You know, how often is it going on? It needs to be criminalized federally. Absolutely. Same with in routine infant circumcision. But yeah, I definitely concur with your, and in total agreement that I think this is impossibly sexist, and I can't believe the feminist response to this. I mean, they're claiming to be, obviously this is what's said on paper, but looking out for both sexes, right? They're looking to advance both sexes, and when this is brought up in almost every instance, they're like, we're focusing on women's issues right now. So they understand that this is very serious, and they understand at least partially the gravity of the situation, but they're not willing to invest at all into it. And that's concerning for me, because feminism is becoming, and it already is, a political movement and political force, and like they've established institutions of power. So what I'm seeing from feminists is not really an approach. It's one thing if they're like a civil rights group and things like, it's another thing if they're have legislative power and are ignoring male issues. This is not the people that I want to elevate at all. Actually, this group and how they identify, that's very concerning to me. I can't have people like that in power, because they're not taking this issue they're not respecting this issue like I believe it needs to be respected. No one is, but they certainly aren't either.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I've met some cool feminists who are like totally down with men's rights, and so it depends on like the particular.
Well, they'll agree that it's wrong, but they're not. They need to be. We need people that are doing things to. Yeah.
I mean, we've had feminists out at the Bloodstained Men, but so I don't want to overgeneralize, is all I'm saying. But like, but yeah, no, in general I agree with you completely that it should be about both sexes with feminism. I really like the principle and the on paper, like you said, idea of feminism. And some feminists I can have a conversation with about it, and maybe we don't agree with all things, but they'll at least be willing to talk to about it. But then a lot of them either outright deny that it's an issue, or they will say, well, yeah, it's an issue, we shouldn't be doing that, but don't compare it to FGM because that's so much worse. And that's a real problem. And I think it comes from this sort of this binary perspective of like, if you framed men as like up here and women as down here, and there's no room for any complexity beyond that, well, how is like the rich king of the castle sitting on the throne going to, how could they, be viewed as having gone through anything?
Yeah. And what's really interesting at this point in time is like the majority of OBs and pediatricians are women, and those are the majority of individuals that are circumcising children. I honestly wonder if it's, the majority of infant circumcisions are being performed by women. And when you look at the director of the CDC, right, I think that's now a woman. So that's an institution of power that puts out a lot of propaganda on male circumcision. Then you have the AAP, also the president of that is a woman. Another major institution of power controlling the narrative on this. And then you have PEPFAR, the director of PEPFAR is also a woman. So that's another significant institution that is putting out a lot of propaganda in Africa and potentially even the United States. I'm not entirely sure. And a lot of our federal resources are going towards, well, I mean, obviously not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but I believe like hundreds of millions of dollars have gone directly to circumcision campaigns in Africa. And we're not even going to go into that rabbit hole unless you guys really want to right now. But the programs that they've done are insanely unethical. Yeah, like rounding up children from their house and bringing them on like buses and then just circumcising them in mass. And just the way they encourage men, like man up, right? This is the terminology, to get a penis. Yeah. Like, man up to get your penis mod. This is fucking insane shit that's going on over there. Insanity.
Yeah, I saw a video from like an African political leader who, all these Americans came in and they started promoting circumcision, and they promoted it in such a way that they said, hey, you basically don't have to use a condom if you get circumcised, because condoms are expensive. There's not much resources. And then this guy was pissed as fuck. He was just like, they said it would prevent HIV. It did not prevent HIV.
Yeah.
Like, lied to.
The medical, yeah, I think a lot of things is they're getting a lot of pressure, right? There's a lot of pressure from women as well. I mean, that's what I've seen when I've analyzed this and kind of gone into their circles on social media and things like that to understand what's going on. The way that women openly talk about uncircumcised, or I can't believe I just said that, but intact men and circumcision in general is really some heinous stuff. It really is. And same, we see that in America as well. And it's men saying this as well. But
yeah.
Just the way that women are pressuring men to get circumcised, there's all this pressure from a health standpoint, right? They're being told it's like totally undesirable and disgusting and vile if you don't get circumcised, right? There's been instances of men being like held down by other men and getting forcibly circumcised. There's all this pressure from men and women. It's just overwhelming. And like America, right? Or these like people that come out of fucking nowhere and are creating this huge campaign. Can you imagine that? Somebody comes in your country, it's like an invasion. You need to get circumcised. You're fucked if you don't. All this fanfare, and they're driving around with buses and shit. Bring them on, bring them on. Like they're coming to your house. Like, what the fuck is going on here? What in the and we're spending millions of dollars on that shit. Are you fucking kidding me, guys?
Yeah, I think we've got it.
Unacceptable. That is so fucking unacceptable. It's we're laughing about it right now. It's, you know, the best way to frame this is an atrocity, and it has to be condoned for. So,
yeah, I was curious what's actually gonna what the reparations are gonna be from us when this issue turns around, which it inevitably will. It's like, dang, we basically committed a mass mutilation of another continent. Like, what's gonna be the repercussions for the United States for that? I just can't even imagine.
What about like reparations to like our
on
own
an insane
people?
level? Yeah, it's going to be trillions of dollars. That'll just to fix that. I hope we will.
Yeah, seriously,
I'd be all for it.
Yeah, absolutely, me too.
Yeah, on the topic of Africa, what was the name of that prince that was like doing really good work?
Yeah, Hillary Prince C. Maloba something. I forget now.
All right.
I think there's two different names.
I know you posted it up on Facebook.
Prince Maloba or Hillary C. Maloba. Yeah, he's doing really great work. I saw he had like a protest where there were like hundreds of like kids. Like, I've never heard of any protest in anywhere in the United States that has hundreds of people coming out for a circumcision protest. But he's trying to get, because they do it in schools, like they do mass circumcisions, and then apparently they're forced to, or they can't go to school. And so he's also trying to get funding to help these kids, because it's
so wrong. The fact that, I mean, and the World Health Organization is like condoning it, right? They're promoting it, they're championing it in mass. And then on the other hand, they're, you know, working to criminalize FGM in all these African countries. It's unreal. They're actively spending tons of money promoting male genital operation, right? Male circumcision, excising structures from men, and they're working to criminalize it at the same time. The paradoxical nature of that is mind-blowing. So that's a sense of serious powerlessness and dehumanization. It's a very dehumanizing type of feeling. We're victims of sexism, very serious sexism, egregious sexism, unacceptable levels. I know what that feels like now. It's a horrible feeling. It's a terrible feeling. And then there's complete denial from my entire society that this is sexist, that this is mutilation, that this is a crime, total denial, and no acceptance of the narrative that we're trying to present at all.
Yeah,
So,
see, that's the thing is like I'm an egalitarian. That's what I consider myself. So like I care about everyone's issues. But the thing is, I see the women's issues being addressed. You know, I see that already. I've seen that's been a thing for like decades. Um, and that's good. That's great. But like the men's movement, whenever you bring it up, particularly, again, I don't want to like overgeneralize, but in most feminist circles, it at least causes a little bit of uncomfortableness, if not disdain. And it's like, why is it so difficult to just like view the other side of that coin, especially on an issue like this, where like we're literally having part of our body is cut off.
yeah,
You know,
it's such an extreme thing too that they can't acknowledge. Yeah, I don't want to make generalizations either. That's actually a terrible habit that I have, or a flaw when I speak. I'm looking to evolve beyond that. So I'm not even really going to go into this, but yeah, it's really unfortunate how society. What's strange is how reluctant they are to accept it. That's not strange at all. Now that I'm going through this organic thought process in my mind, it's very obvious why they can't accept it, because there's serious repercussions to admitting any type of wrong, or admitting that this is mutilation or that this harmed people. That's serious. Because the way the rules of our society work is, if you're harmed like this, you're entitled to justice. So I think that's what everyone's worried about most. And I think that's something that Intactivists aren't even focusing on right now. It's actually, Intactivism is a children's rights movement. It's not really focused on the victims at all. And it doesn't incorporate kind of seeking justice for victims, or really any type of support for victims. It's strictly, exclusively focused on protecting children who haven't yet been circumcised. For the most part, that's not entirely true, but somehow it's left out kind of the pursuit of justice for victims. And I find that very interesting, actually.
I think there should definitely be some kind of reparations, whether that's research for stem cell regeneration or something. I don't know what. But yeah, I mean, it's absolutely a human rights violation.
I want an acknowledgement from society, from medical institutions, from the federal government. They need to outright say, this, we collectively condoned an atrocity, and there's people that are suffering and have suffered because of negligence and ignorance, and really this has to be understood. How can this happen? How can this happen? And why weren't the people's voices who were speaking out against this elevated?
It says something really strange about human society, that we're able to condone the strangest and most harmful things if it becomes normal to us. It's just so weird.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. My question is, if we are making this argument that basically society has completely failed us, and that we deserve some kind of addressing of this issue for not just future children, obviously, but for victims as well. I think the question is also then, like, how do we actually organize or demand that justice and raise the issues that we're having and find a way to elevate it ourselves? Because I don't really think that any social justice issue throughout history has ever just been like society or the government or anyone was like, oh, look, these people are hurting so bad, we should just go and like figure out how they're hurting and then fix it. That's not really the way society works. It's generally these people over a number of decades are suffering an incredible degree, and gradually build up a movement and find ways of putting pressure on society to such an extreme degree that it's impossible to ignore
Yeah,
it without having literally riots in the streets that would tear society apart if it's not addressed. And that's not happening yet. So I think the onus is actually on us, and we need to figure out the way to do that. Because right now, there's a reason that it's not being addressed, and I don't think it's necessarily the government. Well, whether or not it's the government should be doing that, they're not. That's not the way it's set up right now. So
often I hear at the protests, and this honestly, this is true of like any protest on any issue I've been to, but there's all this whataboutism that comes along. They're like, there's wars that are being fought. There's this, there's that. What about this? What about that? And it's like, for one thing, you know, it's a fallacy because you can care about multiple issues. You don't have to choose one issue to care about. But
yeah,
it's like also, it's so undermining it. How is mutilation like? I mean, I don't know if you can make a direct comparison to like war or something, but like mass mutilation, that's not a small issue.
It's disgusting on your own citizens. It's like domestic terrorism. I'm not kidding. It's an act of terror and extreme violence, and that's what it brings into people's lives. And that's what it instills into people as well. It's this probably the worst moment of our life 1,000 times over, happened as a fragile neonate. How did this impact the trajectory of our neurological networks, things like that? That needs to be considered. Not everyone can mitigate this trauma the same way, to the same capacity. I would love that to be explored. It's this extreme form of early infancy penile trauma. So there's definitely, that's something to look into significantly. And then in addition, you have the permanent loss, the anatomical loss, which is extremely challenging to deal with. And it sucks, the fact that your sex organ can be diminished and muted like this. That's horrifying to me now as an adult, and I've gone through this very traumatizing experience trying to deal with that and come to terms with that. And then the sensory loss itself is very, very challenging. And so we have to find a way to communicate this whole narrative to people. And I really appreciate that you brought all this up, Jordan. I think it's very insightful, and I've definitely thought this way myself, but you were able to phrase it pretty eloquently. And I think the onus really, really is on us to, obviously it is. What's really strange is this perspective is not shared by really anyone in an institution of power right now. So we need to get people elected and in legislative positions and judicial positions and executive positions who think the same way that we do on this. We saw one example from Andrew Yang, who made some interesting statements and really kind of initially came out in support of Intactivism and said that Intactivists will be proven right in the future. And those were some strong statements, I thought. And then he totally went back on what he said and said that he was privileged to have attended a bris or something. I couldn't believe how much of a flip-flop that was.
You said it should be it's mutilation, it's awful, but it should be a choice for the parents.
Right. So that's someone who never really held our position at all. We're saying this is completely unacceptable. We need to criminalize the practice, and it needs to be policed. That's what I'm saying, at least. Not this talk of abandonment and things. That's downplaying. That's watering down this situation significantly. So I think it's difficult to maybe start talking about incremental change and things like that. That's what I was focused on originally, like an enhanced circumcision consent form or something like that. But I think that waters down our whole argument completely. This is an atrocity. So when you start presenting, if that's what we think and that's how we're framing it, incremental changes and things like that doesn't make any sense. We're not treating this like an atrocity right now. When we discuss this and speak about this, we're not discussing it in that manner. We're not asking for anything like if it was an atrocity. I didn't communicate that effectively or properly, that last statement that I was trying to make. But we're not addressing this like an atrocity. We're not, the whole vibe that we give off is not really like this is some very serious thing that needs to be addressed right a lot of the time, at least. So I'm not sure, you know, how clearly I communicated that point, but it's a huge pet peeve of mine and something that I think we're getting wrong as a community. I think gentle education is important and things like that, but we have to have some potent points that we deliver to people to frame this properly. And that requires, you know, you have to be diplomatic, but you have to be very, very serious with people when you say, you know, and use terminology and rhetoric like an atrocity, like a profound human rights violation. If you never end up saying things like that, people are still going to excuse this, and they do very regularly. Anyway.
Yeah, very important. Very true. I don't think enough people have that mindset at all, that it's such a extreme thing, you know, and it's hard to like have a conversation one-on-one with a lot of people and bring that sort of approach for a lot of people, I think, because they don't have the energy or the sort of whatever, the passion or just the assertiveness that it takes to actually present that viewpoint. So,
and I really am not sure how much, you know, I think there's a huge benefit to galvanizing our outside audience, or people that haven't yet been exposed to Intactivism, would be interested in learning more, would potentially become Intactivists. But we have a huge internal audience right now, actually, that's not being leveraged at all. And I think that it would be highly advantageous to begin, obviously people are trying to do this, but bringing these people together and delivering statements and testimony to, you know, city councils, county councils, state legislators, that's obviously the direction we need to move in eventually. But I think those are those are the people we need to be speaking with.
I think the problem, as far as like politicians, is that for one thing, a lot of them haven't even heard of it, and then another thing is, see, a lot of people are just like unaware of the issue and a huge problem. You've at least got to be aware that it's an issue to start with. It's like a lot of people who say you're against circumcision, that's a totally new one on them. And that's strange considering that, I mean, I don't know how many people are like on the Bloodstained Men Facebook group. It's like thousands, tens of thousands, maybe. We've had nationwide protests, we have billboards, and I still get the feeling that for most people, you bring up circumcision being an issue, they'll either laugh or they'll be confused. And another thing with the politicians is that even if they have heard of it, I think they generally don't like taking positions on what they see to be a wedge issue. I've had that happen when I introduce it into general political discussions, like, oh, we don't need to divide ourselves on these wedge issues. But it's only a wedge issue if you make it that. It's only divisive to your base if you make it divisive. And as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the most universal issues that I've seen, because it has something that, like I said, will appeal to everybody. So I think that's what we have to do, is to convince our politicians, like, this is something that will appeal to your base. And it's something that will, at the very least, it'll make you a candidate that stands out from the crowd, that doesn't just talk about the same 10 issues over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Don't present as a cut boys club, from Wayne Nixon in the comments. I think this issue can be represented by men who were circumcised as infants. I don't necessarily think we need intact men and women, but I think diversity is important as well. A lot of issues are presented to city and county legislators or, city, county council members. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there to mobilize and start interfacing a lot more with our local officials. You can just be present at the meetings, right, and give testimony at the very least. And I've seen some examples of this in the past, but if you had like 50 people show up to a city meeting and start just delivering testimony on this, you would start making a scene there, right? You would start being able to directly speak to elected officials and at the very least get them aware of this issue. Like I can imagine, maybe not 50, but initially like 10, 15 men just showing up at a meeting, dressed up nice and well and presenting this very eloquently while, being authoritative but diplomatic at the same time. And, just presenting this enough is enough. I'm not sure, what exactly you'd say. That would really have to be carefully understood beforehand by everyone who's going to be presenting. But I do think it's important to be not shy away from the tough discussions that need to be had there. So that's interesting that no one's really pursuing that right now, actually, because it's a very common tactic. It's like the main, the primary way to like elevate a citizen's concern. It's the first step that you really take, because those city and county officials can elevate concerns to state legislators. They're like the primary way to actually get the attention of state legislators is through city and council and county council members. And then, with that being said, we don't really have any type of political action committee. We have Intaction. They've been doing a little bit of work out on the East Coast, I believe. But there's no actual type of awareness campaign for elected officials at all. And there's no money, time, resources, and personnel that are looking to really raise this concern with elected officials. So we don't really have the proper like team and infrastructure set up to even begin handling this problem at all, actually. And the bloodstained men are great, but that's like an awareness raising campaign. We have such a large internal audience. It's strange that we're not at the phase yet where we're looking to connect with elected officials and form relationships with elected officials and get our issue, on their radar.
I don't think people are necessarily wanting to be visible or participate to the activism itself. And I have seen you doing Tough Talk, Carter, and I do appreciate what you have been doing, obviously. On the other hand, I cannot see these radical changes happen via politicians necessarily. Both for women's rights or gay rights, they kind of started on the streets and then made its way to the politics or the states. It's my approach. I might be wrong. I might be wronged. So, like, even on a very personal level, when I do try to bring up the topic very often in my daily conversations, but it rarely ends up with changing people's opinions. Even if they change, they wouldn't necessarily become like a participant to the cause. And with that, actually, I had something to say about the feminist approach as well. Like, here is a man talking about their feelings and is being vulnerable before you. Isn't it what you were asking for? Now listen to me. But like, I mean, at least try to keep a straight face when I'm telling you about this. It's like it's really a strange experience. I had friends listening to me when I'm talking about this stuff, obviously, But the general approach is, why are you making such a huge deal out of it? Because I think uh, the repression is too strong for people to be able to get ready to what they're about to face, both men and women. Women might have a son that they had circumcised, men are already circumcised, so they don't even want to get near the topic. So they're just like, oh it's the like obvious I'm circumcised and I'm fine approach. So to change that, I think to gather around people as the riot that Jordan brought up, we would need more people on our side, but on the at the same time, it's pretty much yeah, you're making a big deal out of it. You must have another problem. There must be something wrong with you. I'm perfectly fine. You're the one who's having PTSD about this or that kind of stuff. And yes, I am not okay. Thank you. I mean, that's not news. I know I'm not okay, and that's I'm just shocked that you are okay. So it's really like you get lost in the conversation on that point. You don't understand how they can be that fine, and they don't get your. They can't put themselves in your shoes.
It's a strange tightrope to walk because I want to acknowledge my victimhood in that instance. That something was done to me that took part of my body away, and I want other people and I want society to acknowledge that. I don't want to live as a victim. And that's part of what the restoration is to me, is like I'm doing what I can. I can't completely overcome it, but I can overcome what I can to the best of my ability. I remember I was doing therapy at one point, and I told my therapist about my restoration and all that, and she at first was very open to the idea. She did think that circumcision was essentially a mutilation, so I just got lucky in happening to find someone like that. But then when I would bring it up a second time, she would be like, telling me that I shouldn't be doing restoration. I should be accepting myself the way that I am. Like if I met a Jewish woman, she might prefer that I be circumcised. And I forget what I said exactly, but I probably said like, I don't care what any woman or any man wants my body to look like. That's my body. So it's it's kind of strange,
I mean, that's so unacceptable, dude, that a therapist would say that. So I just want to clarify that and, establish that and let you know that. I'm sure you already know that, but sometimes I think it needs to be said as well. And for other people to be aware that that is wildly unacceptable to say something like that.
Yep. You just flip the situation. Say like, oh, a woman wants to modify her body in some way. Well, men won't like that. Who cares, right? It's her body. It's my body, right? That was one of the last sessions I had with her. So, yeah, no surprise. But it's a strange tightrope because what she was essentially doing is hacking the idea of, well, it's sort of like when people say get over it. It's like, well, I kind of am in a sense. I've grieved circumcision. Maybe I won't be 100% over it. And I only speak from my own experience, probably guys who never. But I still want, part of the grieving process is that acceptance, right? At the end of it, I've got to be able to accept that that happened to me, and I need other people to accept that too. That's precisely how you get over it, is to have that acceptance factor, and we're not getting that.
And something that I want to bring this back around to really quickly is I think it's important that I mean, obviously this is just all talk at this point in time, but leveraging that internal audience that we already have, there's a significant amount of people that share the exact same feelings that we do that are really remaining hidden in the shadows right now. I think maybe it sometimes seems like our movement is much smaller than it really is. And this might be the opportunity and time to start just directly. People keep saying, you know, we shouldn't make a push for politicians and things like that because we don't have enough people on our side. This is a huge movement. There's not a lot of people kind of reveal their identities and things like that, but a lot of people do. And we have a sizable amount of people that feel the same way as us. I wonder if we can, at this point in time, start galvanizing individuals to speak with elected officials and start at, you know, even if we didn't, why would we not be doing that? So I think it's a big next step for a lot of people. I really think we need to create a culture of that type of activism, right? We have this culture right now of protesting on the street, and we need to have this culture of getting people interfacing with elected officials, and we need to be promoting that. I think right now versus in the future, and I'm actually trying to go through that process myself right now and speaking with. I tried reaching out back when I lived in Bellevue or Seattle, Washington. I lived in a suburb of Seattle called Bellevue, and I tried speaking with my county council, the King County Council. And when I did some initial outreach, I got in touch with a executive assistant for the city council who was very interested in hearing more about this issue. We had a Zoom call, and she was like, look, I'm an ally. I agree with what you're saying. I'm going to look to elevate this to the rest of the council. And we were talking, she gave me a phone number. We were talking about how to pitch this to the city council or the county council and things like that. And then all of a sudden, one day she sent an email saying, you know, we can't look into this at all. And this is not something that the council is going to be able to pursue. This is exclusively for state legislators to deal with, and then never communicated with me again. So obviously there was something that happened there. She spoke with someone, and you know, they put a hard stop to this. But I figured out that the issue was that I was approaching this as a single individual, and there was no pressure. There was no pressure from a group. There was a single person is not going to incentivize them to hear you out or have a meeting with you or something like that. Like I didn't put any type of pressure on them. If we show up with 50 people and subject matter experts like Brian Earp and people from DOC and things like that, and have like a toolkit put together that we can share with them before, and if we appear as a legitimate group and have like a brand, not necessarily a brand, but an organization that we can stand behind and have some type of authority from that. We're not doing even the basic things that we need to be doing to get in touch with elected officials. All the other groups already have the template for us, really. I mean, this is something that everyone else is doing except us. The only thing we're doing is, and it's not everyone's doing, is street activism. So for some reason, this specific movement doesn't attract people that can approach activism in that way. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but that's it. Or there's something else. I haven't really been able to decipher that yet. I can't put my finger on why that is. And I'm trying to figure this out on my own right now, right? So I'm researching it. And once I kind of have a plan or something that people can kind of just get behind, I'm looking to present it, but I haven't yet cracked this code yet of how to get an item added to a city or county council agenda, right? You can get an agenda item added and they'll investigate, right? They'll hold space for it. They'll speak on it. They'll give their opinion on it. They'll let other people speak on it, right? There's this whole process you can go through to elevate citizen concerns to the elected officials. And getting them to even, it's possible to get them to address this as an agenda item at the very least. You can, there's like a mechanism that you can leverage to get them to address this issue, no matter really what the issue is. You just have to have enough people on board with what you're saying and willing to present testimony and willing to be at these meetings, and have a pitch put together, have a toolkit, documentation put together. We don't have any of that, and subject matter experts that can speak on our behalf and then speak to what we're saying. So anyway, I'm going to stop going down that path right now, because I really don't have much else to say about that. But in the future, I'm looking to present more on this and actually lay out like a plan of action of how we can start discussing these topics with elected officials, because this isn't like my own original idea, obviously, right? I'm seeing this all the time as I go to these city council meetings. I'm like, this is totally realistic for us to just appear at these meetings and start giving testimony. It's totally realistic to do, and we can deliver like potent points. We're saying very serious things, making very serious allegations. They can't really just completely ignore that, especially if we have this added as an agenda item. What they can necessarily do, I'm not sure, but if we can present this effectively as a human rights violation, as an atrocity, it's not really going to leave them much choice beyond elevating this concern to state legislators. And that might be the mechanism in how we get the attention of state legislators on this topic. There's a lot of other ways, but they're the ones that really can set policy on this. At the city level, there's really not much they can do. Yeah.
Great points. Yeah, I look forward to seeing how this continues developing, because I think, as I've said before, it's a really great strategy, because it's something that we can do it, multiple. We could do this in cities all over the United States, or potentially other countries as well. But it's something that you can repeat, and if you figure out how to do it, then you can just continue doing it. So it's sort of that community organizing strategy, which is bringing together all of the people who are harmed by something, and then figuring out how to advocate to the people who are in positions of power, which I think is a great strategy. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
It might be something about timing as well, for the people who are advocating for this cause. Might have gone through what we all are going through right now, and then just simply given up, because like I have been okay, so this is a problem for me, being circumcised. I have to deal with this. I've seen a therapist too, it didn't work. And then I started restoring for 2 years. Nothing much is changing down there. And then I started this, I started doing activism on social media, like a YouTube page and Instagram, 20 followers, like nothing is changing. So after a while, if people went out there to try all these things and nothing is happening, it's very disheartening. So I can see people going to the point where Wesley's therapist said, like, okay, well, I guess I need to be happy with this. I guess I mean, a false acceptance, if you will. So then they will completely check out from the cause as well. That I mean, I'm just throwing this out like that. I'm not saying it is the case, but people might completely check out from the topic because it's too stressful, because after all those efforts, the payoff is almost nothing, and they're not that. I can understand if people cannot be that strong as well. I'm not saying they're weak people, but I can understand people not wanting to invest on this issue from this short life that we have to live.
It's, yeah, excellent points. And it's brutally traumatizing to actually start engaging on this. And I remember I was filled with like so much hope and joy when this is executive assistant, you know, was willing to take this on with me. And then like the deepest level of despair. I remember like sitting in my bathtub crying at one point over this. I was so let down. I thought there was really something going here. And then it was like the greatest defeat. It felt like such a loss, such this overwhelming loss. And I think I invested too much in that emotionally. But there's many instances where that happens, where I'll be speaking with someone and I'll really, you know, be trying to convince them, and they just won't get it. And it's very difficult to understand that. And it really is a visceral type of feeling that you get. That's very consuming, and it's thrown me into manic states again and again and again. And I don't think all men get this way, but it's really caused some severe psychological trauma for me. But I really think that's more like damage. Like my brain doesn't feel right when I get into these states, and it feels like it's harming my brain. This level of stress for extended periods of time, it's like at a granular level neurologically, it's caused issues for me cognitively, emotionally. It's stunted it's regressed my emotional health and my cognitive health. My memory gets messed up too. Like not really even my short term, but long term, like the days just blur by. I wake up, there's been months where I've woke from the minute I woke up to the minute I went to bed, I was in like terror with brief, you know, breaks in between. That just hasn't been good for me. I really think that a component of this I'll just live with for the rest of my life, and I kind of need to learn how to operate in that chaos a little better, and make those times shorter in between. But yeah, I'm not sure really why I went down that tangent. Oh yeah, it's important to acknowledge that when we're trying to get people to start discussing this issue, is there's a huge opportunity for very intense trauma that can destabilize your life completely. It can completely destabilize. I know that you know isn't just me. There's a lot of men whose lives have been completely destabilized from the trauma on this issue, and it becomes particularly strong when you start engaging on it, and when the reaction isn't what you expect from someone else. It just like flips a switch in me. And I've had this happen online too when I'm on social media, and it's not as bad then. It's still really bad, but in person when I get a response that I think is especially callous or something, it's this very dehumanizing moment that stays with me for a long time. And one instance was when I initially told my mom, and this was one of the worst instances. And I remember I was with my girlfriend at the time. We were at Chipotle, and I told my mama that I was very upset by this, and I wasn't really as serious as I should have. I definitely was serious, but that wasn't the setting to bring that up in. It just wasn't. But she laughed at what I said. She like straight up laughed at it, and that was when I first started understanding this issue, the first month, and I was just in like disbelief that that's what her response would be. Obviously, she, now I can understand it a little better as I've had more conversations with her. But in the moment, I was like, this is unreal. That's your response to what I just said. Do you place any value on me at all? It's these dehumanizing moments that are very unique, I think, and really throw men off guard. Like we didn't. This is not what I thought could happen in a Western regime like this, or a Western. I just wasn't. I didn't. It threw me for a loop for sure, and then people's response to it also. I just remember in the very beginning, especially being, every time that would happen, it would like take my breath away, and I wouldn't recover for long periods of time. And I think I shouldn't have just pushed people on it until I really knew how to effectively do that, because I was getting horrible responses, belittling responses from people like, oh, you really upset your mommy cut your penis? Like, dude, you're a grown man telling me, is that how you're really going to respond when I, you know, bring this up? So, yeah, I think that's difficult. It's really difficult to start speaking up on this because the response is callous. It's this very callous response.
Yeah, my mother was extremely abusive, not just in her decision to circumcise me, but also in, well, throughout my childhood, like physically, emotionally. Even like when I was 13 or 14, she like kind of started coming on to me sexually. So
oh, God, dude,
it's a little bit, I don't want to say that there's a sexual motivation behind most circumcisions, because I don't think there are, but I think there are at least a few people out there a little bit of that. Well, certainly I've seen people online who are like, I'm circumcising my son because no girl will want him if he has a turtleneck. And it's like, you're really willing to impose your sexual preferences on your son. Like, imagine if a father did that to his daughter. That's insane. And so, you know, in my case, you know, and I think it was a similar response. I told her over the phone about it, you know, that it's like, why did you mutilate me? And she just kind of laughed as well. And I said, like, you know, I have problems now because there was not a whole lot of mobility, and I'd get like chafing and stuff. And fortunately, a lot of that's pretty much gone away with restoration, even at an earlier stage of restoration. But at the time, yeah, it was a problem. And I know I'll never have the whole thing back. And she was just kind of callous, like you said. And because of all that, I tried to have a relationship with her as an adult, but like we've been estranged for the past like over 4 years now. So yeah, so it's like you don't have to put up with that with people who are just consistently abusive and never show any signs of getting better.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all that, man. That sounds particularly brutal. I'm sorry you went through that. I know that doesn't change anything, but definitely have a lot of empathy for that situation you were in. That's brutal. Not to, you know, bring up that trauma, but or categorize that trauma for you, but that did not sit right with me at all.
Yeah, and you know, like when I was a kid, or like around the time that, especially around the time that the sexual stuff was happening, like my dad sued for, or not sued, but you know, went for child support twice, and you know, they came out to the house and they talked with me and all, but the lawyer just straight up told him it's extremely difficult for a father to get support away from the mother. And so, and you know, we never won the case. I just started like literally staying at my dad's when I was 14. Like he just came and got me. And guess what? He still had to pay child support for those last 4 years, even though I was staying over at his house. It's just crazy. So I mean, there's definitely a sexism component to it as well. It's like that. One thing that struck me a lot about that movie, American Circumcision, which I've watched like 4 times now, is there's a line in it where the guy's saying, in order to accept a man's feelings as valid about circumcision, you have to be able to, on some level, accept what circumcision is, that it's harmful, you know, and that it is extremely abusive. And if you can't accept that, not only does it cause the issue in and of itself of circumcision being mutilation, but then the victims don't even get any empathy as a result, because it would mean that people would have to compromise their worldview of circumcision being fine and dandy.
Absolutely.
And by the way, I'm sorry for you having to go through that with your mother as well, because that's awful.
Yeah, well, you know, there's actually a good ending to that story, though. And my mom is extremely supportive now, and I would even call her an intactivist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she's 100% on board. I did an interview with her recently, and Brendan Marotta, actually, on his podcast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I sent it in the private chat, so you can check that out
Oh,
later.
yeah, sure.
That was wild.
Yeah, she's messaging me regularly, you know, saying, what can we do next? I got her in touch with 15 Squared, this charity from the UK, and she's like looking to speak with another mother there who's, I don't think the mom's I don't even know if I can really actually talk about, I don't know if this is something I should discuss, so I'm not going to, but there's a potential that she's going to do another video here soon with another mom, and I think that would be a really interesting video to do. For sure. But yeah, my mom's 100% on board now, and you know, wants to help legislatively, you know, psychologically for me any way she can. And that situation didn't happen out of luck. It didn't happen. It was something very intentional that I worked with her on, and it was a process for sure. And it was something I brought up to her again and again and again, and had to figure out how to formulate the right way to get her to understand it from my perspective, and not just my perspective. Get her to, she's not just concerned about this issue because I'm concerned about it. She really understands, right? She truly understands that she facilitated mutilation on me, and that removing sexual structures from children is an atrocity, and it's a terrible thing to do, and it shouldn't be done. So regardless if I was involved at this point or not, she would pursue this. And I think that's possible actually with a lot of parents. I'm not saying all parents, but it really comes down to an understanding. They'll have their child's back and stand by their child's side if you can get them to if you can pull back this curtain. There's a lot of barrier to really understanding this, and it was actually, I had to take drastic measures, right? I was like showing my mom infant circumcision, showing her intact male anatomy, and saying, look, this is not what you think it is, right? This is not what you thought it was. You had specialized genital structures excised from my penis, constituting like a significant quantity of the erogenous tissue, and it was a radical operation on my penis that has severely affected me, both psychologically and physically. And then, you know, having that in combination with this publicly sourced intelligence of infant circumcisions and intact anatomy and things like that was really what was necessary to convince her. And it started getting me to understand what's necessary to convince kind of the public at large. Right now, there's an extreme trivialization of the anatomy, right? Extra loose skin. I'm starting to believe that this is actually the crux of what we need to be targeting here, because the consent argument is not, I at this point don't even think it's a great argument, and it waters down the point that we're trying to make, that this is genital mutilation, right? This isn't a consent issue for me. My issue is that I was genitally mutilated. I'm not saying adult circumcision, you know, is always genital mutilation either, by any means. But what happened to me is genital mutilation. If we gouged out a child's eye, the issue wouldn't be like, oh, that child didn't have consent when that happened. No one would say that. No one would say that. So this is an act of terror and violence against us.
And there's also, with adult circumcision, I absolutely support someone's right if they want to do it, but there is an issue of informed consent, and I think there was a guy in the American circumcision documentary who was like, they don't tell you, they'll tell you all the supposedly positive stuff about it, like, oh, you know, it might reduce diseases, but then they don't tell you, oh, it removes 20,000 Meissner's corpuscles, it removes lubrication, it removes this, it removes that, all these specialized structures. None of that's told to people when they go in for a circumcision. That, to me, renders the consent invalid because it's not informed consent.
You don't even really know what's being removed. Like, are they telling your frenulums? Like, people's frenulums get removed in circumcisions all the time. Like, that's an important component of the anatomy. That definitely needs to be discussed. Are parents being told this? Are parents being told this is going to be like a majority of your son's erogenous tissue? This is a functional component of your son's penis. Your son's frenulum will be removed. It may not. The ridge band's going to be removed. all of these components of your son's anatomy. Obviously, that's not being said. The parents aren't looking into it either. I mean, I haven't like absolved my mom of all responsibility either. And that's, and if you watch this video that I did with her, you'll see that I do, you know, push her on this. And she's not looking, you know, that's not what she's looking for either, to be honest with you. She understands that there's a role that she had to play in this. And she's admitted to me, you know, it's bizarre that I didn't take into account how you would feel about this at all, that I just had a blasé attitude towards a penile modification. So I said, you know, pretty much just fuck it, right? You know, we're just getting a penile mod on our son. We're not looking into it, and we're not going to think about how he would view this in the future. Like that's a character, that's a serious, and I'm putting it gently and lightly, that's an extreme character flaw. At the very least, and that's all I'll say on that. But in the very best scenario, a parent who does this to their child has a very serious character flaw, and potentially that's been resolved. Maybe it hasn't, but that's where I stand on that, and that's me being polite, to be honest.
Yep. And I know that incrementalism is really a fan of it either, but if we were to do something incremental, I think having parents giving them that information, saying it removes half of the mobile skin system of the penis, it removes 20,000 nerve endings. There's still some parents that would do it, and so I don't think that's, you know, that shouldn't be the end of it. But you know, you see a lot less people do it if you told them the detractions of it.
Yeah. And when you actually look at, I mean, it's alarming when you see how much tissue is removed. I've watched infant circumcisions myself to understand, you know, what was done to me and understand the gravity of the situation. And in order to expose the glands on an infant, the foreskin like cocoons way, it doesn't look like this on an adult, but on an infant, it's like this structure that cocoons way above the glands. And so, but the shaft is really small on an infant in proportion. And so they have to remove so much to expose the glands, so fucking much to expose the glands on an infant. And that's kind of, I guess, the aesthetic look they're going for. They want full gland exposure.
Yeah.
So
on an infant.
Yeah, on an infant. So that's a huge amount of tissue that they have to remove. And what I've seen, I'm not into, you know, how are the physicians know that they're torturing a child. How are we, I'm just not, I don't know how to think about that. I don't know how to be comfortable with these physicians, you know. I'm not, that's the truth, is they, I don't even know how to start that conversation, to be honest with you. They are committing an act of terror and violence, and I've said that a couple times now, on a child. And to say I didn't know any better, come on, guys, come on. So I don't know how that situation is going to be dealt with, but what I've seen is it's so obvious. It's horrifying. It's a Saw movie like thing going on here. What do you mean they don't know any better?
Yeah, then they just saw that video without any explanation.
You'd be like, a mental rehabilitation facility where they learn how to be a normal human being, and that's generous, and that's, you know, something that's a new way to look at criminal justice entirely. That's a revolution in criminal justice, if that's how we're going to, and I want that. The way, I mean, I'm looking for a revolution in criminal justice, and I want these people to become mentally healthy and not think that mutilating infants in mass is appropriate in any way, shape, or form. I want these people to be reintegrated back into society, but there has to be a process here where they're confronted with the reality of this situation, and we kind of resolve, we establish that this was totally unacceptable when you were doing it. And really, it seems like there should be some price that has to be paid. I'm not maybe necessarily jail or something like that, but it seems like they would have to be forced to financially kind of repent for this in some way, or some type of act of charity or something.
Take all the money that they made circumcision.
Seriously, they made so much. Some of these people are making, that's like a huge percentage of their income. That's their practice, is circumcising infants. It's so disgusting, guys.
Also take the companies that promote that for facial cream, make them give all that money back.
This is like a dystopian type of thing. It's so dystopian to me. Really, they're making, and they are. It's not like the infant's foreskin is directly going into the serum or whatever like that. They like clone skin lines or something. I don't necessarily know how it works, but the fact that it's being used for anti-aging creams and other types of medical, it just like really my tissue got harvested like that. It got cut off my fucking body and harvested and used in hygiene or products like that. It's
they care more about like an old woman having a couple less wrinkles, which I suspect it doesn't even do that. I think it's kind of stupid. Well, if I rub an infant, an infant's penis on my face, then it'll make me look young.
I think it might have growth factors. So I don't really know, but that tissue actually is extremely valuable. That specialized type of genital mucosal membrane tissue is very unique for the body and has unique properties, and so that's
so not any part of tissue, but just the foreskin tissue.
Well, there's other types of tissue that have similar properties as well, but it's really the mucosal membrane, and also
because it's infant tissue as well. Stem cell like properties of that.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know that.
It's potent, I think, is what the specific stem cell is on.
So the children cannot just simply sacrifice like part of tissue from their legs.
I think that might have properties as well that could be useful, but I know that it's unique.
Can we do that if we're going to kick?
Actually, yeah, something like being able to.
Companies need that. Sorry.
It's very important, not just for the foreskin, but anywhere where there's mucosal membrane tissue, like lining your gut or your mouth, right? This type of mucosal tissue is, can be life-saving and has properties outside of the foreskin as well. It's different on the foreskin because that's actually able to trigger like this neurological response that's euphoric and pleasurable. So if you rub your mouth or you rub, other areas of mucosal membrane tissue, you don't have the same response. But this specific type of mucosal membrane, the genital mucosal membrane tissue, it's able to generate that euphoria or what's erotic, the erotic kind of neuronal connection. Yeah. So.
Hey guys, I have to go soon.
That was
just
a long
heads up. So. I don't know if you guys want to continue talking, but
I'll probably
I could leave it on
as well.
But okay.
Yeah, it was a long convo. I honestly could talk about this longer, but I know that sometimes it's good to wrap things up eventually. I've gone.
We should come back for this though.
I'd be down. Yeah, it was a great conversation, and it's kind of uplifting. Like it genuinely feels that way. I appreciate you hosting this, Jordan, and getting this together and incentivizing people to join. It's great.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming and all of your contributions, as well as Morgan Freeman, who was here earlier. And
yeah, that's so mean.
I know. I wonder if that's really his name.
Celebrities on our side.
Yep.
Yep.
Doesn't get better. Before we end, I want to do this on every show. Actually, invite you guys. Does anyone here want to be a host of a future show? And do like
I could maybe.
Okay. Cool.
I would be way down the line, but I like being able to present a lot, and not have to facilitate the conversation.
Yeah.
But I know you want people to do that as well, so. And I really think sometimes I need to let other people speak.
Yeah, I want to have as many people on as possible. And I appreciate everyone talking, but...
Oh, yeah. I was just like Greg, and I see that he commented. I totally dropped the ball on that. But I think it'd be interesting to have him on. I said I'd let him know or reach out to you and see if it'd be cool if he came on, and I never did. But
Yeah, we have had him on before, actually.
oh, really? Okay. Yeah,
Started.
he always has an interesting perspective to share.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know Gregory Malchuk, Wesley?
No, I haven't heard of it.
Okay. The man, the myth, the legend, Gregory Malchuk. I have to share his YouTube channel with you. Are you on Discord,
Okay.
Wesley?
I think I am. I never really use it though.
Okay. You're not much of a gamer?
Not much online.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, I got like my Facebook if you want to chat.
Yeah, I'd be down for that. We have like good communities on Discord though that I think you maybe be interested
Yeah,
in.
you can send me a link if you want.
Yeah. I'm gonna put my email in the private chat.
Okay.
If anyone wants to reach out to that, or actually if both of you guys, I know Jordan, you already have my email, but if you want to just send me an email, just all I have to say is hello or something, just so I have it if I ever want to reach out. But if not, no worries either.
Yeah, Wesley, can I contact you as well?
Yeah, sure. I'll put my email.
Okay,
right.
cool.
And as always, for anyone watching this, please do share it. Please do subscribe. Helps us out tremendously. Move this cause forward. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching this.
Cool. All right, peace out, guys.
All right, see you later.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Wesley,
Bye. Thanks.